Should DJs bring an external mixer? Probably, but it really depends. Now, it depends is never the most satisfying answer when it comes to a usually yes or no question. But the fact of the matter is, in today's world and today's equipment, it really depends on what you have. Now, external mixers have a lot of key advantages. So you have to ask yourself, do you already have these in other places in your equipment? For example, microphone inputs, right? If you're running one of these little guys, you're gonna need an external mixer if you're DJing a wedding, right? If I'm DJing a wedding, I need microphones. It's just that simple. So if I want to use something like this, little Hercules for a nice portable setup, I'm gonna need this guy, right? The other thing, this has balanced outputs, right? Unfortunately, it's my one thing I don't like about this mixer. This has TRS outputs, but having XLR outputs or just any type of balanced output on your mixer board, very beneficial. On top of that, aux inputs, right? I have multiple stereo channels on here that if I've got the right adapter for my phone or my tablet, I can plug more audio sources into here and mix it into my speakers. Who knew? So depending on the controller you have, one of these might be a really good idea. But if I'm running this guy, this has EQs for each mic input. It has 2 microphone inputs right here on the back and balanced ins and outs. I don't need an external mixer as much with a controller of this design. And that's kind of gone away. A lot of the mid-level and down controllers don't have balanced outputs. They tend to have one mic input, and oftentimes it'll have a tone knob rather than an EQ. That just doesn't cut it for me. I need equalizers. I want balanced ins and outs for that type of stuff. But again, this has EQs for my mics. It has XLR outputs. I've got aux ins for running other sources. So this streamlines that a lot. Now, it will also depend on what you are using for your speakers. If you're running OG Evolve 50s versus the Evolve 50M that has the mixer board on the back, that's going to make a lot of these decisions a lot easier. If your speakers have a full-bore mixer across the back of them, you probably don't need an external mixer because you already have one built into your setup. Now, there are other reasons for wanting the external mixer. Like I said, the EQs and stuff on the mics are usually going to be more robust, usually going to have better sounding mic preamps, not always, but more often than not. You'll also get, depending on the mixer board, compressors, which can be really nice, especially for karaoke. If I'm doing karaoke, I'm bringing an external mixer. I'm not running those karaoke singers through a DJ board. It's just not the best idea. But if I'm just doing a regular old wedding or something like that, yeah, like basic EQ, all I need. The other thing though is depending on the mixer board, you get things like reverb, right? If you're doing karaoke, really nice to have. A lot of singers don't like the sound of a dry mix. And last but not least, if you're doing karaoke and stuff, you're going to want a monitor out. You're going to want your singers to be able to hear themselves. And having separate adjustments for what volume is going to those monitors can be very important. So lots of different reasons and rationales, but just generally speaking, for your average DJ'd wedding, it's just going to depend. Do you have a mixer somewhere else in the chain, right? If your controller can fit all of the roles, you're probably set. If your speaker has built-in mixing capability on it, you're probably set. But it just doesn't hurt to have a mixer board available. Even if it's just a small 4-channel, 2 mic input, that kind of thing, it can be worth its weight in gold having it set aside, because, you know, something starts acting up equipment wise, right? This thing collapses and crashes on me, or my computer lights on fire, somebody spills a beer on something. Plug, you know, my phone into an external mixer, limp along for the rest of the gig, make it work. So there are good reasons and rationales, but in today's world of more and more mixer capability on the back of speakers and things like that, it's less mandatory than it would have been a few years back. And ironically enough, some of this older stuff had more capability than some of the newer ones. It kind of boggles my mind how many mid-range DJ controllers only have RCA outputs. And for me in my setup, balanced is a must. But again, if I'm looking into some column array speakers and they have an 1/8 inch or RCA input that I can run, that Hercules into, and then again, I have the mixer built into the speaker itself. So it's all going to depend on the equipment you have. So take it with a grain of salt anytime somebody says you need to have one. But those are the rationales of why one could be a good idea, but you probably don't need one with today's equipment. It's just going to depend what you all have, right? If you have RCA outs on your DJ controller, don't plug your microphone into it. Get yourself an outboard mixer. You'll be much happier. But it's just my 2 cents. If you disagree, that's fine. But I'll see you in the next video.